Ladies and gentlemen, today we have some breaking news regarding President Trump's tariffs and China's reaction to them. You see, folks, it would appear as if China has decided that they want to do things the hard way. As President Trump just posted, yesterday, China issued retaliatory tariffs of 35% on top of their already record-setting tariffs, non-monetary tariffs, illegal subsidization of companies, and massive long-term currency manipulation. Despite my warning that any country that retaliates against the United States by issuing additional tariffs, above and beyond their already existing long-term tariff abuse of our nation, will be immediately met with new and substantially higher tariffs over and above those initially set. Therefore, if China does not withdraw its 34% increase above their already long-term trading abuses by tomorrow, April 8, 2025, the United States will impose additional tariffs on China of 50% effective April 9th. Now, folks, as you can see, President Trump is done messing around. He is absolutely not going to tolerate any of these Chinese antics. Level the trade balance or you are going to get tariffed into oblivion. Those are your two options, Xi Jinping. And in fact, as of just 30 minutes ago, as a consequence of China's belligerence, President Trump has gone ahead and raised the tariffs on China to 104%. He is not messing around. Now, keep in mind, just a couple days ago, a White House insider reported President Trump is at the peak of just not giving a frick anymore. Bad news stories, he does not give a frick. He's going to do what he's going to do. And so, I don't know about you folks, but personally, I think that's the exact sort of energy that we need to fix this country. And so that's the exact energy that President Trump is giving off with this situation with China. Now, check this out. China has actually issued a response to Trump's talk of increased tariffs. Take a look. As the report reads, China to Trump, threats won't work. After Trump threatened another 50% in tariffs, China made its position clear. Spokesperson from China's U.S. Embassy, Liu Pengyu, says, "We have stressed more than once that pressuring or threatening China is not the right way to engage with us. China will firmly safeguard its legitimate rights and interests." So you know what? Here's my opinion, folks. I agree that China does have legitimate rights. I think that China has the legitimate right to a 104% increase in tariffs, which is exactly what President Trump just did. And you know what? Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent just weighed in on all of this. Take a look.
President Trump has maximum negotiating leverage right here, right now. And I think it would be a mistake for anyone to think otherwise. And as I said, many of our trading partners, they have queued up and they have kept their cool. They have not escalated, and they will get priority in the queue. I think it was a big mistake, this Chinese escalation, because they're playing with a pair of twos. Traditionally, if you look at the history of the trade negotiations, we are the deficit country. So what do we lose by the Chinese raising tariffs on us? We export 1/5 to them of what they export to us. So that is a losing hand for them.
And now, folks, of course, everything he just said is 100% true. China is not going to come out on top in this situation. Now, regarding the impact of all of these tariffs, take a look at this really great breakdown. Let it play.
By and large, tariffs are good for us, and let me break it down. If politics were a video game and the president were a character you could play, tariffs would be your most powerful economic move. So what's a tariff? Basically a tax any business has to pay to bring goods into a country. The USA is uniquely a reasonably big country with a huge consumer class by global standards. So most every sizable company in the world needs to sell here. The argument against tariffs is that they just tax the U.S. consumer. If you say I have to pay $100 to bring my $100 widget over from China, I'll just charge $200 for it. But it doesn't always work that way. What tariffs can also do is encourage companies to avoid the extra charge by making things here in the U.S. or they can level the playing field for U.S. manufacturers who are getting crushed by cheap imports. So you can't just swallow these headlines that claim tariffs are just a tax on U.S. consumers. If tariffs always dramatically raise prices for consumers, why didn't that happen in 2018 and 2019? The truth is that the U.S. has been so focused on making it easy to import goods from other countries that we've made it reflexive for other countries to tariff U.S. products while we let overseas goods flood in, and tariffs can't stop that, Joe.
So, ladies and gentlemen, what that man just said is absolutely true. The United States of America has the largest and wealthiest consumer market in the world. Every single country wants to sell their goods in America because there's a lot of us and because we're all reasonably wealthy. Well, compared to the rest of the world at least. In fact, it's this exact economic relationship that China has taken advantage of over the last couple decades to elevate themselves out of poverty at the expense of the American taxpayer. And so that is what President Trump has an issue with. If you want access to American consumers, you need to pay an entry fee. That's the deal. And you know what? Just yesterday, Stephen Miller had an excellent breakdown of this entire situation. Take a look.
The original sin of how the modern economy in America is structured, the president talks about more than anything else. And it gets to Caroline's point about the overall economic vision. The original sin was that we created a tax system that punished you for making something in America and rewarded you for making something in China or a foreign country. So in other words, if you had your factory in America, you paid a sky-high corporate tax rate, you were beaten to death with regulation, you had radically unaffordable energy prices, and Washington just in every way made your life miserable.
And the political class didn't do anything about it. They allowed it to happen.
Correct.
Well,
they sat by and watched it happen for decades.
They actually wanted the opposite to happen, especially if you look at the 90s when we had NAFTA, we had the WTO, we had the entry of China into the WTO. The goal very clearly was to remove U.S. tariff and trade barriers to make it easier for people to outsource to China. Because once we gave China what we call permanent normal trade relations, all of your manufacturers in the United States who are thinking in short terms, in terms of quarterly earnings and that kind of thing, they said, listen, now I can go move my factory from Indiana or wherever, I can put it in China, I can put it in Mexico, and I know I will have sure access to the U.S. market. Today, President Trump is saying the best place to make American products and sell American products is here in America.
And so, folks, that is what all of this is about. President Trump's goal is to put an end to decades of incompetent American economic policy. And you know what? This is the fundamental idea that China seems to not understand. China is acting like they can get President Trump to back down by upping their tariffs on American goods, when in reality, President Trump is actually totally comfortable with a clean break from Chinese manufacturing altogether. China doesn't really consume many American goods in the first place, so who really cares if they tariff us even more? It's completely inconsequential. But you know what is consequential? Shutting down China's manufacturing powerhouse and cutting Chinese retailers off from American consumers. So here's the reality, folks. China needs us more than we need them, and President Trump knows it. And that's exactly why he's doing all of this. Because he knows that regardless of what happens with all of this, America still wins. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why we all voted for President Trump. Now, before we wrap up with today's video, I want to say real quick that I've actually gone ahead and made a community Facebook page where I'll be posting additional news and updates as it relates to all of this. So hey, if you guys use Facebook, check out the pinned comment down below and give that page a follow. But everyone, that is going to be a wrap for today's video, so please go down below and drop a comment. Let me know what you think about all of this. Please like the video while you're down there. If you guys enjoy the daily news updates, please consider subscribing to the channel because it really does help a ton. Thank you all very much for tuning in today, and of course, as always, stay safe.